Last season, Aaron Rodgers didn't look like the MVP he was the year before, and the Detroit Lions proved to be his kryptonite, costing the Green Bay Packers the playoffs. But we step into 2023 with a new gunslinger in town. Enter the unproven Jordan Love. So how will things fare this season? Let's go ahead and discuss. And what's crack-a-lackin'? It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know. So go ahead, become a bro and subscribe. Leave this video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content. And as always, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let's have that nice, beautiful football discourse as we continue our deep dive series, this time with the Green Bay Packers. We're going to be talking about their coaching staff, the scheme, the roster, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to give you my predictions for the Green Bay Packers this season. But quick little update, I'm currently doing my wide receiver eval for the 2024 NFL draft class, and it's a chunky class. There's a lot of good players, and I keep adding guys because I think I want to give you all top 15. So I don't know if it'll be delayed, I don't know if it'll be out this Friday, we'll see, but I'll keep you updated. But let's go ahead, get into this sucker with the coaching staff, as we got Matt LaFleur, been the head coach there since 2019, and should be no surprise that, yeah, he runs the Shanahan offense. If you're unfamiliar, he worked under Mike Shanahan, worked under technically Kyle Shanahan over in Washington. Matter of fact, his OC, Adam Stenavich, worked under Kyle Shanahan in, I guess that would have been prior to 20, was it? Yeah, I think it was prior to 2019. But yeah, he worked under Shanahan as a assistant offensive line coach. So they're kind of like-minded in what they want to do offensively. If you're unfamiliar with the Kyle Shanahan offense, wide zone blocking scheme, basically you want to get running backs in there with very good visions, because it gives the running back a lot of options. They like to have a lot of good movers, good guys with just good movement skills on the offensive line. It wants to get the ball into the hands of playmakers fairly quickly, and just kind of let them create, and it loves play action, it loves motion, it does a lot of things quarterback friendly. So you got to think Jordan Love's going to look relatively decent. He's had last 3 seasons, is it 3? Yeah, 3 seasons to develop behind Aaron Rodgers. So we'll see what goes on with that. I will make a quick side note that with Adam Stenavich, because he was with the Matt LaFleur's staff when LaFleur was hired, and he stepped up into the OC position last season. I really thought we were going to see more A.J. Dillon, and I guess we'll talk about him a little bit later in the video, but we ended up seeing less A.J. Dillon really until the last part of the season, which kind of like, I don't know, I guess it wasn't correct for me to assume that since he was the run game coordinator the year prior, that him stepping up would mean we'd get to see more of Dillon. I thought Dillon was kind of his baby, but I don't know. Maybe we will. We will see. But the big Achilles heel of this team, you could say, is the coaching staff, or at least Joe Barry. Not a lot of people like Joe Barry, and actually Marcus Whitman, that franchise guy, the infamous butt tweeter, he actually just did his Green Bay Packers deep dive, and he actually has a video with Mike Renner talking about how just this organization functions, and they don't really like to fire people. They kind of have close ties, but it's like, if guys aren't getting the job done, you want to let them go. And Joe Barry, man, he's kind of become a bit vanilla when it comes to this defense. And honestly, mainly my biggest issue, because I don't think I'm as critical on Joe Barry as a lot of other people are, because I think he does such a fabulous job scheming stuff up front. And I get why people dislike him, because like coverage, it's very vanilla. The coverage is exceptionally vanilla. He's really not willing to go into like press or man coverage. Like, this was a very quarters heavy, very just zone heavy team last season. But like I said, I like what he does up front, because like I thought he did a better job last season of like using a bit of blitz. Like, here, let me bring up his blitz rate last season, but I thought he did an effective job of getting his playmakers into positions for one-on-ones. Like, I thought he did a good job with that, with like Kenny Clark and such. But there are times where he kind of like just puts his guys on an island and just like, hey, go out there and win. And that's not always the most advantageous way to go about things, but he does come from like the Vic Fangio style of defenses. However, with Vic Fangio is actually a pretty darn good, if you didn't know, DC. And it's just these guys, these mentors that come from his tree they're sticklers when it comes to his base scheme. But we've seen with Vic Fangio, like, oh, you know what, my personnel, they're actually pretty good press man guys. So guess what? We're gonna be calling a lot of press man. We're gonna go into cover one and whatnot. Like, he has a willingness to adapt. That's why I'm excited as a Dolphins fan. Fins up, baby, fins up. But Joe Barry hasn't really shown the same type of willingness. So I don't know, man. I would put him. I really think maybe he's less than ideal. He's sub-average, sub-mid, but I do think he can get the job done. Now I've just pulled up the blitz rate. Thank freaking goodness. Yeah, man, their blitz rate last season, 32.5%. So exceptionally solid. Like, he doesn't mind bringing in five or more rushers. But like, I get it. The big stickler for a lot of people is what he does in the secondary. And when we get into like the roster breakdown of the defense, you're going to see that, like, okay, some of his guys, like, they're just not right for this scheme, and he's just not using them correctly. He's not showing that he can be adaptable, and that's kind of the big problem with Joe Barry. But I guess let's go ahead and talk about the roster. But before that, let me give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is currently one of the most premier fantasy betting apps, and they got a best ball tournament with $15 million in cash prizes. So if you sign up at Underdog Fantasy using promo code Broshmo, they will match your first deposit up to $100. Remember, use promo code Broshmo when you sign up, and they will match that first deposit up to $100. But as always, bet responsibly, my friends. Let's go ahead, get into this. And actually, I want to show you all the starting offense, at least how I have it as of right now. And that is kind of the $1 million question. How good is Jordan Love? Because we've seen him in garbage time. And I think he had that game against Kansas City last season. Was it last season or year before? I can't recall, but he only had 21 passes last year, so he is widely an unknown. So a lot of people are kind of basing it off their draft eval of him, and he was someone that I didn't have a first round grade on, but I saw the upside, and I think I was more of a day two because I saw the upside, but I knew he was going to take some time to get there. So honestly, this development could be very good for him. The thing is, like, when you're looking at those guys, like, like on day two, it's like, yeah, you can develop them. You're still hoping to see him within the first 2 to 3 years, and we're going into year 4, and we haven't seen a great deal of him. So it's kind of the big question, but I know he's got the arm talent. I think he's a plus runner, and I remember at Utah State, it's just sometimes I didn't think he was necessarily inaccurate. Or at least I didn't think he was widely inaccurate, but I did think the decision making, because you could see, oh, he's got the big time throw potential, but then like, big time throws, decision making, that's right up there. Excuse me. So I guess we'll see how it goes this year, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's a very quarterback-friendly scheme. It's just the playmakers also need to mature, and I guess that's kind of the next big gripe. Like, I know Christian Watson looked phenomenal last year. I thought he was a plus run blocking wide receiver. He's someone that can create after the catch. He's got, at his size, really good speed to stretch the field vertically, like get this guy on a crosser in a tight formation. Then, watch out. It's a little scary. And then you got Romeo Doubs, who's a bit more, I don't want to say a possession receiver, because he does have that vertical ability. He can stack corners, but he was a bit inconsistent last season. Let me pull up. Was it drops that killed him? Yeah, 5 drops. So sitting there at a 10% drop rate. I mean, Christian Watson also had a 10% drop rate last season. So you are going to be concerned about that. Those are going to be 2 big factors going into next season. Can your playmakers hold on to the football? I think the addition of Jayden Reed's kind of huge, because he'll come in and be at this slot, though. I think there's some guys that could vie for that slot position, and we'll get into a bit more of the depth, but he comes in and he's more sure-handed, I would say, than those two. I mean, I had my qualms about both the Watson and Doubs' ball skills going into the 2022 draft. Like, I thought Romeo Doubs didn't show good hand-eye coordination. He didn't always look like a natural pass catcher, even though the drop rate wasn't nearly that bad. That's why, like, sometimes it's like, oh no, you look at the number, it's like, oh, his drop rate's really good. I think he hovered around like 4.5, which is exceptionally good. But then you watch him, it's like, he doesn't look like he has natural ball skills. A lot of body catching and whatnot. And lo and behold, 10% drop rate last season. Christian Watson, I already knew that. I already knew like his hands could be inconsistent. So that was no surprise to me. The big allure was his size, his speed, and what he can do after the catch. I mean, this dude brought return capabilities over there at North Dakota State. Now, Jayden Reed, I think in the slot is where he's at his best, because he is a slick, smooth route runner. He can stretch the field vertically. My biggest thing was like, all right, his release package I'm a little concerned with, because he's a little undersized, and if you're gonna have him on the outside, like, he really relies on quick feet to get off the line of scrimmage, and if you have corners that could just take that away from him, then it's gonna suck. It's gonna be a struggle. But you put him in the slot, he's gonna see more free releases, and he's gonna be allowed to do what he wants to do. A lot of people like akin him to like a Tyler Lockett type, which I don't think that's fair. Tyler Lockett, I thought, could work both inside and out. And, I mean, you could say that about Jayden Reed, but I think at least early on, he is going to be ideally a slot receiver. And then you bring in Luke Musgrave, another rookie here out of Oregon State. Didn't see a lot of playing time at Oregon State. And to be fair, last year, that was the injury. But when he was on the field, that 1.5 game he played, it was phenomenal. You saw a big receiving threat. The year prior, he was stuck behind he's in Houston now. He's more of a blocking tight end. It's like Quintario, I can't recall his Tegan Quintario, something along those lines. But Musgrave was stuck behind him the year prior. So last year was supposed to be his like coming out party, and that just didn't happen because of the injury. But then he goes to the Senior Bowl, shows out well. So as long as he can stay healthy, you got a very deadly receiving option at the tight end position. A guy with natural ball skills, just good speed to tear it up on the seams. Not like the best blocker. That's why they had Quintario there at Oregon State. That's why he saw more playing time, because he was a better blocker, and that's a very run heavy team. But I feel like they also added, I mean, let's go into a bit more of the depth then here. Let's switch over. They added also in the 3rd round Tucker Kraft, who's kind of a poor man's Dallas Goedert, which is funny. They both came from the same school. I think that's why it's easy to make that comparison. But he's a bit more all around. He's a solid blocker. I think for me, I do see the receiving upside and potential, very good mover. However, the ball skills were a bit infrequent. And I know Packers fans out there, you're like, oh, great, you're just ragging on everybody's ball skills here. But it was kind of true. Like, he had some puzzling drops. Like, this was a guy that could make highlight catches at some points. Like, he's got that athleticism, but it's like, sometimes he just didn't come up with the football, and it was kind of puzzling to me. Something I mentioned in his eval, but he's going to come in and he's going to play a part as a blocking tight end. They also have Josiah DeGara out of Cincinnati a few years ago. Big bust of a draft pick, but I think he's a solid tight end 3. He's a guy that I've been saying for years, hey, work this guy in as kind of a H-back, full back, because he has that receiving upside like a Kyle Juszczyk, and I think as a downhill blocker he's fine. I'm not comparing him to Kyle Juszczyk. I'm just saying this is kind of the skill set. It's a similar skill set. I don't know why they never tried using him more in that role. Now going back to the wide receivers here, because to be honest, like, I mean, at tight end they got a couple of other guys. Alan Austin, who's kind of this big, tall Cornhusker. And then you got Tyler Davis, kind of whatever. Cameron McDonald's a bit undersized. He was coming out of Florida State, but he's a solid receiver. So it's like, for me, I feel like there's really nothing to talk about there. They probably keep one of those guys. Tyler Davis, maybe. But looking at the rest of the receivers, you got Dontavian Wicks, who I think probably works best in the slot. Not necessarily the fastest guy out there, but someone who can be very solid after the catch. So getting the ball into his hands quickly can typically mean good things. So maybe that's something they try to work on, getting him involved. I don't think he's someone you want working on the outside a lot. Malik Heath coming out of Ole Miss. He's more of a traditional outside prototypical X. You could say the same thing about Grant DuBose coming out of Charlotte. So, wow, they brought in oh my gosh, dude. They really invested in a wide receiver. Like you look, they spent a 2nd rounder, a 5th rounder, a 7th rounder, and then they got a bunch of UDFAs. We'll talk a little bit about the other guys they have here as well. But Grant DuBose, another outside guy. Samori Toure, who I believe was out of Nebraska. Oh, I know he transferred a couple of, like, did he transfer to Nebraska or from Nebraska? To Nebraska. I can't recall where he was originally. I think it was like in the MAC or something. But he's a solid piece. I think there's a good case that Bo Melton could get involved here. Like, this is kind of, I'm not gonna lie, this is open season when it comes to who's wide receiver 4, 5, and 6 on this roster. It is legit open season. I think I'm not gonna lie, I think there's a good case that Grant DuBose and Malik Heath make the roster, and then you're looking at, like, depending on how they feel about Wicks playing on the outside, and then you're looking at maybe like, man, yeah, this is gonna be close. Then you got Samori Toure, Bo Melton. Like, I don't feel great, but like, these are young options you're hoping just kind of pan out. I mean, let's go ahead and look at, they got 2 others here. Deuce Watts, who was out of Tulane. Jadakiss Bonds out of Hampton. I actually liked a ton. I thought he showed good after the catch ability, good speed as well. So maybe a dark horse there, because this really, for all intents and purposes, is a wide open competition. So you might be like, oh, they got solid up and coming playmakers. I think outside of Watson, and even that stretching it, no one's proven. Nobody's proven. I mean, Christian Watson, he looked very good last year. 788 yards, 6 tutties. Still, though, is he an alpha, or is he a good complementary number 2? That's kind of the question you're hoping to answer. And from there on out, it's Romeo Doubs. You're kind of hoping he takes a step in the right direction. Then you just have all these rookies. So it's not exactly ideal, but I mean, you go to running back, and you have one of the best receiving running backs in the league, Aaron Jones, man. Like, yeah, sometimes he'll drop the big play, but Dude is exceptionally good. He's a top 10 running back in the league. I freaking love Aaron Jones. I mean, let's look at what he did last year. Like, he had almost 400 yards receiving last year. What was his drop rate? 9.2. So yeah, it's up there, but he's a running back. I think you could live with a running back who doesn't have the most consistent hands, but had over 1,100 yards. Love to see it. 53 forced missed tackles. I do know A.J. Dillon got more involved down the stretch. Let's actually see. No, I guess he just wasn't producing early on. I mean, there was like a period earlier, like early to mid season, where he started losing snaps. But I mean, for the most part, like, they tried to keep him at 10 or more carries, but man, didn't have 100-yard game last year. Most rushing yards was 93 against Chicago, which, yeah, you better. And then the second closest was 73. Ugh. So, like, I mean, A.J. Dillon's going into a contract year. You got to think, man, they're probably not bringing him back. I hate to say that. How more involved does he get into this offense? Let's go ahead and look at other options that they may have there. Is they have Patrick Taylor. He's fine, but he ain't doing too much for the squad. I think really it's going to be like, okay, does anyone step up here? As you have Tyler Goodson, who coming out of Iowa, I thought he was like really good speed, just didn't have good vision. And that's the thing. In this type of offense, you need good vision. You required. So maybe someone that they've developed, maybe his vision's gotten better. Maybe he can step up and be like the number 3 here. I think Patrick Taylor's very replaceable. Lou Nichols, big body, bruiser. It's got a little quick to him, but not much. Manuel Wilson, I believe, he wasn't the Virginia State guy. He was Fortson, right? Fort Valley State. Okay, I actually think I liked him. Let me go see if I have a report on him. Just out of curiosity, looking at my old draft Google spreadsheet. Dude, I freaking love Google spreadsheet. All right, let's pull it up. I had Emmanuel Wilson as running back. Where are you at, Emmanuel Wilson? Fort Valley State. Running back 39 last year. I got a little bit of a write-up here because I saw him in the NFLPA Bowl, but he was very productive at Fort Valley State. Just very good size at 5'10", 228 pounds. Good length as well. Big wingspan, ran a solid 4.57. The combine had relatively good explosive numbers, like much better than you'd expect from a 200, almost 230 pounder, like 36 in the vert, 120 in the broad. That's very nice. Of course, like his change of direction is not going to be great, so he didn't do well in the agility drills, but he didn't do bad. They weren't in the red for me. So all in all, man, he looked pretty solid. I only had Lou Nichols a few spots ahead of him, and honestly, man, he had a rough go. Didn't really test out. Only did the bench and the vert. Though his vert was pretty solid. So, like, these are guys that have a little explosiveness to them, a little size. Nichols coming in at 222 pounds, but yeah, I mean, if we're gonna talk about, I'm here talking about the running back 3 potentially here. I think there's some excitement to be had, but at least you have, like, I guess the best word is proven playmakers in Aaron Jones. A.J. Dillon, you know, is at least going to be that banger, that bruiser. So Jordan Love it's not like he's coming into this with the best group of weapons. You'd be like, okay, well, who's his best weapon? It's Aaron Jones. It's the running back. Because we just don't know what you have in Luke Musgrave. You don't know what you have in Jayden Reed. You're hoping Romeo Doubs takes a step. Christian Watson, he's probably the most proven outside of Aaron Jones. So there's a lot of things looking there. I mean, do we really want to talk about what happens if crap hits the fan and they have to start Sean Clifford? Didn't have a draftable grade on Sean Clifford. I want to have drafted Sean Clifford. I think he's a great guy to hold a headset, but that's about it, man. There wasn't a ton to love there. Danny Etling, wasn't he moving to like wide receiver? Or am I just dreaming that? I don't know. But fortunately for Jordan Love, I think he's actually got a really good offensive line. I say really good. Here's my ranking for the offensive line as... Here, let's move this over. I have them as a top 10 pass blocking offensive line. And then as a run blocking, they're more middle of the road for me. Starters there, David Bakhtiari. Looked great last year when he was able to come back from the knee injury. A lot of people thought his career may be over. It's great to see that it's not. And I mean, he came back and he looked great, guys. He just did. Only allowed 10 pressures on 597 snaps, 339 pass blocking snaps specifically. He did have the, what was it, appendectomy last year, but that was kind of a freak accident type of thing. So it's kind of like, that was like in week 13, I think, or caused him to miss week 13. Next to him, you got Elgin Jenkins, who is looking to somewhat have a bounce back year. I say looking to have a bounce back year. They tried him out at right tackle to start the season. And to be fair, it didn't go hot. Allowed 9 pressures and 2 sacks on, let's say a little over 100 pass blocking snaps. Moves back. To be fair, like, he had a solid game against the Giants, but yeah, he was fine enough against the Jets. Those are the following 2 games after his first 3 games. His first 3 games were really bad. But they move him back to left guard, and you know what? Never move him. He looked great at left guard. He did. I that's the spot for him. I think in a pinch, yeah, it's great to know you can move him at tackle, but I think preferably you want him out there at guard. So you got 2 guys there that are borderline elite. I think they're in the they're probably top 10 to top 15. Like, Jenkins definitely a top 10. I think more so with Bakhtiari, it's a question of health. So we'll see with the knee injury, previous knee injuries, excuse me. But let's keep in mind, he's been going through this since 2018, I believe. Moving on to the other side of the line, you have Zach Tom, who honestly I projected to end up being a center coming out of Wake Forest. I wasn't completely sold that he could stick it at tackle, and I was shocked. His play was very good last season, very good as a pass blocker. Did he fall short as a run blocker sometimes? Yeah, I mean, he's got a very interesting physical profile. That's why it was kind of hard to project what position might work out best for him. But as a pass blocker, he was phenomenal. He really was. John Runyon has honestly been solid. He has made some strides. Another guy that's a very good, I would say a very good pass blocker. As a run blocker, he's kind of like meh, doesn't always deal with strength the best. But I think you could definitely have way worse options. I think there's worse options around the league that are currently starting. So I think they're in a good spot there. You have Josh Myers, who probably is the weak link of the offensive line. We could always bring up that, hey, Packers fans, you could have had Creed Humphrey. could have. So you're kind of hoping he emerges, but he's been someone I think has been solid in pass protection. I think a lot of times with mainly I would say mainly with like, Myers and Runyon, they could sometimes miss things, whether it's in pass protection, missing the looper, or if it's as a run blocker, not always being able to, like, maybe missing your assignment or picking the wrong guy, or because keep in mind, wide zone, you're moving over, and typically you have a general idea or a sense of, okay, if this guy's in my area, I gotta block him, but y'all understand what type of leverage you need if you're trying to make those blocks. So it's like, I think for them, they don't have the most they don't consistently keep leverage well. But again, like, as pass blockers, I think they're fairly solid. If we're gonna look at the depth, I think depth could get a little bit worrisome here, as they have some projects and some guys we just really know nothing about as of right now. Yosh Nijman was actually fairly solid when called upon last year. Like, he did a hell of a good job on 756 snaps last season, only allowed 28 pressures, 5 sacks, did commit 10 penalties, but like, in all honesty, he was playing both left and right tackle for y'all, and I think he's one of the better backups in the NFL. Royce Newman, I think, is a good backup option. I think as a starter, there's concerns. You instantly know he's going to be the worst player on your offensive line. He is the upmost of mid, but I think as a backup, you got a very good depth guy right there. I think he could step in a pinch and at least give you average play, and I'm okay with that. Sean Ryan's a bit of a question mark. Didn't see playing time last season. I think he was also suspended early on for, I'm just going to say, fact check me, PEDs. I think he was suspended for PEDs. Let me just fact check myself. I do recall him being suspended, though. Yep. He was suspended 6 games for violating this performance enhancing substance policy, which, I mean, that's very broad. It could mean a lot of things in terms of what substance he was using or they found in his body. Because keep in mind, man, sometimes these guys take vitamins and whatnot that their nutritionists are telling them, and it's a very lengthy list of what they're not allowed to have in them, and sometimes it's like, oh man, they need to be very aware of what's going into their body. So I don't when I see that, I don't want to think the worst, because a lot goes into trying to make sure that you're keeping all the things that the NFL says don't use out of your body, because, like, honestly, not all of them are like, not everything's steroids. I know when we hear performance enhancing, everyone's thinking steroids. That's not always the case, okay? Steroids or weed, that's not always the case. But yeah, they just don't know what they have. They have him at guard. I think UCLA, even Chip Kelly and his staff, they played him at tackle, but they were like, yeah, no, this guy's going to be a guard in the NFL. And you could kind of see that. Gojo wants to be let in. I'm going to let Gojo in. Yeah. Come on, buddy. Gojo wants to talk Packers. Here, you want to say hi? I don't think you've said hi to the folks. Come say hi to everybody. Gojo's still here. I gotta. He doesn't have the windowsill anymore to look out of, but gotta get him his little dog bed behind me. All right, Gojo. I'm gonna keep talking, okay? So you just. Perfect. Thank you, buddy. Jake Hansen, Matt. I think there's better options out there. He's less than ideal. Rasheed Walker was a developmental guy coming out of Penn State. I wasn't a big fan of him because I just thought in terms of like when he stepped up against like the best competition, Michigan, Ohio State, he looked consistently bad. His technique was a bit everywhere. So like, if you do have tackle problems, I think my first go-to is moving Jenkins to tackle, and then bring Nijman. So yeah, no, that's always your first option. What's this? All right, who else do we got on this roster? We can talk about some of the I guess quickly we go over some of the other depth. DJ Scaffy, do you baby? Do you? This guy played right tackle for us. Us meaning the Hurricanes. So like now they're moving him to center. Like he's probably a camp body. Luke Tenuta, I was actually a big fan of coming out of Virginia Tech. So like, I kind of hope he makes a roster. Like he's too tall, I think, to play guard, but he's definitely someone to watch out for. Also, someone I know he's gonna probably end up on the practice squad, Kadeem Telfort. I think he was coming out of UAB, but I believe he was initially a part of Florida, not Grant DeBose. What am I looking at? He was. I don't want to go into like player eval. Too late for the 2023 NFL draft class. But yeah, no, he's a guy that's got good size. I think he moves fairly well for his body type. Yep, initially from Florida, but someone who's very much a developmental prospect. I think he was taken in like the USFL or the XFL draft. I can't remember fairly highly, but I think he's someone to watch out for in the future. But I feel generally good about this offensive line. I think they got a few good depth options in Nijman and Newman. Don't know what you have in Ryan, but he was someone I really liked coming out. And there's a couple of other guys. But all in all, man, that's where I got the offense. It's kind of hard to project what will we see with Jordan Love in his first year of actually being the guy, the starter. And I think it's kind of like, I don't know, it's going to be a difficult projection regardless. I got them 21st, 26th. So you could say maybe I'm a bit lower, but I feel like that's just safe at this point. Let's go ahead, jump to the defense, which I have them 16th through 20th, essentially they're a top 20 squad. They're a top, I think they could flirt with top 15. I wrote here, can they stay healthy as they dealt with injuries last year? To like a Rashawn Gary, I believe, Eric Stokes was banged up last year, which we'll get into Eric Stokes and why Joe Barry. Honestly, Joe Barry brings this team down a little bit, especially coverage-wise, because I think they have one of the better cornerback rooms in the league. Like, at least in terms of three starters, their top three starters. I think it's one of the best in the league. There's going to be some questions at the safety position. I mean, just go over the starting roster real quick. With the corners, I have Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes as your starting outside corners. I put Rasul Douglas in the slot because I believe he was the guy that had the most slot snaps of the corners. To be fair, Eric Stokes was banged up, but I don't think Eric Stokes was going to be playing a ton in the slot anyway. If we're looking at it, it was, Rasul Douglas with 198. To be fair, depending on how they feel about Darnell Savage, maybe they move Savage in the slot, but then it's like, okay, Douglas for me is too good to be kept off the field. So do you play him at safety, which I'm not going to lie, I think could be a viable option. Like, it really, really could. Because like Rudy Ford has honestly developed into like a solid player. He had a good year last year, so you could have him play. Like, he played mainly deep for this squad that plays a ton of quarters. But like having Rasul Douglas, who played a little bit in the box last year, you could probably move him to safety and have Savage in the slot. The question is, will Joe Barry do that? Big problem. Like Eric Stokes, I think is a much better man, like press corner, than he is this like off zone guy, which is Joe Barry. That's all he's doing. It's exclusively like, all right, Curtis, yeah, like that ain't gonna work. Cause like Stokes, I think for him, like he's just not, at least as a young player, for him, his zone feel is just not put together yet. He just doesn't have that feel for zone as of right now, of what's going on around him. He's more focused with what's in front of him, and honestly, he has the physicality, he has the athleticism to be a very good man corner. So I don't know why you don't play a bit more man when it comes to him. Jair Alexander, I think, can play whatever you want him to. Honestly, I don't think I'd really have him impressed, but I'm not against it. But like, that's kind of the big question. And Darnell Savage, someone who struggled last year, is coming into a contract year, and you're kind of hoping it works out at safety. But I mean, I think probably last year, honestly, he found his way, after being in the doghouse, he found his way back on the field because of his play in the slot. So we're gonna have to see with that going. Looking at the depth that they have there, you got Keyshawn Nixon, who's honestly more of a return man, like I guess fine dime backer, like dime corner. I think that's all right. Shamir Jean Charles, another undersized slot option coming out of Appalachian State. Corey Ballantyne, really probably just a camp body. He's kind of a journeyman at this point. Not much else there that really excites me. Okay, Carrots and Valentine, I think could probably. I thought he would go higher. I think I had him as like a midday 3, but he goes to the 7th round, midday 3. 5th, 6th. It's kind of where I felt him. Where I liked him at. I thought he had honestly a very good skill set, but someone you probably don't want to start right away. But I don't know. We'll see. Anthony Johnson's going to be very interesting here. They pick him up in the 7th round as the NFL continues to devalue the slot corner position, even though it's a start-in position in the NFL now. And I think actually Johnson, if Savage struggles in the slot, or whoever the hell you want to put there, put Anthony Johnson up in there. That's who should be playing your slot. But I like him around the box too. I think he's a guy that makes the team. Tavarius Moore, very likely to make this squad as well. Very familiar with the with the quarter system coming from San Francisco. Jonathan Owens feels like more of a special teamer. I mean, there's a long shot to make the roster. Benny Sapp, the third, coming from Northern Iowa. So like, there's players in the secondary. You have very good corners. How will they be schemed? And will Rudy Ford continue to play well? Darnell Savage, will he have a contract year in a contract year? I don't know. We'll find out. Let's go ahead and move to the linebacker position here. So we got Devondre Campbell, who, man, talk about like going from looks like you're about to be a journey guy to like turning your career around and making good money. And it's not to say like his play didn't fall off last year. Like, he was still exceptionally solid. He's a guy that he knows his limitations, and he won't ever put himself in, like, for the most part, he won't put himself at a position. He plays the run, I think, pretty darn well. 10% missed tackle rate's not that bad for a linebacker. So you got a very good player there. The question is, what about the guy next to him in Quay Walker? All right, Coach, you want to let out? All right, so Quay Walker. Let's just go ahead and get this out of the way. Yeah, the dude needs to stop pushing or getting in physical altercations with whether it's medical staff for the opposing team or referees. Like, work that crap out of your attitude. You're out there and you're being a bonehead. Bonehead. What's a dumb word? You're being dumb. You're being stupid. You're costing your team not just yardage, but you're costing them you being on the field. In terms of what he did last year as an actual player, the dude was not that good of a run stuffer. I thought he was solid enough when he got 2 ball carriers, but I thought he just doesn't take great angles. And he just overruns plays quite a bit. In coverage, though, I thought he was fairly solid. 5 pass breakups was pretty good. Allowed a 67.4% completion rate, which is actually really good for a linebacker. And honestly, at the linebacker position, you're at the baseline. You want your guys to be between 70 to 80 in terms of what they allow. Him being sub 70 is a really good sign. So, like, when on the field, man, not half bad. Stay on the freaking field, though. Eric Wilson's a good depth option. Isaiah McDuffie is actually fairly solid as well. He played quite a bit last year. He almost had over 200 snaps. Isn't like a phenomenal athlete and probably more of an early down player, but still not a bad option. They have Tyreek Carpenter, former safety out of Georgia Tech, moving to linebacker, which he was a box linebacker anyway, so I think that's pretty solid. Jimmy Phillips Jr., UDFA. I don't even remember this name. Oh, coming at SMU. Yeah, I couldn't tell you much about this cat. So, I don't know. Might make the team. Looking at the linebackers, the edge players, the guys that are going to get pressure. I got your start, Rashawn Gary. This guy's borderline elite at this juncture. He had his season cut short last year. Only played 9 games, but had 38 pressures, 6 sacks. He was coming off the year before, kind of breaking out, where he had 87 pressures, 12 sacks. So like, this man's gonna get paid a lot of money. He really is. You have a very good number 2 next to him in Preston Smith. Just very solid. He's going to go out. He's going to do his job. He's going to do it solid. Like 42 pressures, 10 sacks. Pretty darn good. And then they actually have solid depth behind those guys as well. As we'll go ahead and get into it. Kingsley Enagbare was someone who I was a big fan of coming out of South Carolina. I had him a lot higher on my boards than the general public. And last season, 25 pressures, 3 sacks. I think he's a very good in a rotation role. Especially, I think more so if it's on like 3rd downs or passing downs, where you can just tell this bull in a china shop to go and get after it. I really like him in that regard. Obviously, you have Lucas Van Ness, but he's got a little flexibility to him. A guy that back in 2021 played 3 tech for Iowa. So he's going to be someone that can come in and play like 4 inside or 4 I tech, which it looks like they moved on from guys like Lancaster, right? Or Lannister? Can't recall. Who kind of filled that role. Dean Lowry, I don't believe is on the squad anymore. Yeah, he's not around. So like, guys who kind of filled or supplement that role, like Lucas Van Ness can do that. He's someone that they can get involved and slowly bring along because he's not all the way there yet. That's why, like, part of me was thinking he might return to Iowa and kind of cement his status as a potential top 10, but he ends up going high in the draft anyway, just because the dude moves exceptionally well at his size, great length. So someone they're going to develop, but that they also have a lot of flexibility with. And that's the thing. I liked what Joe Barry does around the defensive line. I think he gets creative for the most part. Looking at other depth, Justin Holland, solid depth piece. Jonathan Garvin, honestly, out of the U, baby. He played well in limited time. Last season he didn't see a lot of playing time, but I know the year prior, man, he's shown to be not a bad depth option. Let's pull it up. Yeah, the year prior, he had 25 pressures and 2 sacks. Then he had his snap total basically cut in half, so you didn't nearly get as much production from him. So like they got guys, they're really good at the edge position. They really are. I mean, there's some other guys here that honestly I really don't care much to talk about. Like there's Brennan Cox Jr. who, man, like he has it. He might not be like the most bendy guy, but he's got a little flexibility to him, and just his production never became like top end or high end at Florida, unfortunately. So maybe someone they can develop there. Keyshawn Banks is similar to what I was saying about Lucas Van Ness, more flexible type of player coming out of San Diego State. Going to the interiors, I got Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt listed as the starters there, and I think that's probably the correct call. We know Kenny Clark is going to be playing a ton. 45 pressures, 5 sacks last season. I thought Joe Barry did a good job of allowing him to get one-on-ones. So I'm happy about that. Devontae Wyatt, they didn't play a ton. Kind of silly. They didn't play him a ton. But when he was on the field, I thought he was solid. 8 pressures, 2 sacks on 224 snaps. 111 of those were pass rushing snaps, so like 8 pressures, 2 sacks, pretty darn solid. He was an older player. I don't know why you just didn't start this guy immediately as a consistent starter. I don't know why you felt the need to have to like slow him into this. I thought it was stupid. Is what it is. Hopefully he gets much more playing time this season. They got TJ Sladen or Tadaro Sladen out of Florida. Kind of a mammoth of a man. I actually saw a good amount of snaps last season. Where you at? Oh, there he is. 333 snaps. All intents and purposes, big space eater. Big monster space eater. Takes up space. They brought in Jonathan Ford from the Hurricanes in the 2022 draft, who's basically similar, just kind of a space eater type of guy. I love the additions of Carl Brooks was someone I was a big fan of. I had a 3rd round grade on him. Kobe Wooden, he went where I thought he would go, and I like that they're going to use him more as an interior player. I saw him more as an interior player, though he kind of like shedded some weight, and I ended up moving him to my edge ranking, I believe. But he just didn't look natural out on the edge for Auburn. I think he's better attacking inside, so he's definitely probably more of a passing down option. You bring in to just go in and get after it, brings that explosiveness. Carl Brooks, monster strength. Like, dude is yoked out at the top. Played edge mainly at Bowling Green at 300 pounds. Doesn't have ideal length, so him playing on the interior isn't a surprise. And you're just kind of hoping that can he handle double teams? That's kind of like a big question of mine. He also wasn't like the most nuanced pass rusher either at Bowling Green. He was very much like, oh, I'm very strong and I'm going to impose my will on you. And he very oftenly did. Moves better than you would expect a 300 pounder too. However, he didn't test that well, which was surprising. Like he tested actually poorly. And I was like, I thought he was a bit faster on tape is what it is. But I was a big fan of him and I'm very intrigued to what they got going on here. Still, regardless, I do like the depth they have on the defensive front. The secondary will probably be the Achilles heel to this roster, depending on schematically what they do. What does Darnell Savage look like? How does Eric Stokes come back from injury, and how will he play? Especially in a scheme that's maybe not as necessarily beneficial to his gifts as it should be. But all in all, man, I like this defense. So I got them ranked in the top 16 to top 20. Let's go ahead, do my prediction on how the Packers are going to do in 2023. Vegas currently has them at 7.5 in terms of their win total, and I have them at a nice 8-6. 8-6. See, the problem that I had with the Packers is it's easy to be like, oh, this is a better team when they're facing losing squads. But as you can see here, when they were facing winning teams, it was hard for me to justify them beating teams with winning records. To be fair, they have one of the easier strength of schedules. I believe they're like 6th or 7th in terms of my projection where I have their strength of schedule. But let's go over the actual game by game. As hey, I got the Bears beating. I'm pretty sure I have the Bears and the Packers split in. You see, I have them 2-4 in the division because I have the Detroit Lions still being the kryptonite for the Green Bay Packers. I think this Falcons game could go either way. It really can. You might be like, oh, what? The Packers been owning the Bears, blah, blah, blah. Aaron Rodgers ain't there. Aaron Rodgers is the Bears' daddy. I think Bears could sneak one by at Soldier Field, especially in the opener. Jordan Love kind of making his first official start. I know he's had a start prior. His first official start as the guy. I think Atlanta is kind of built for this season. I might not love Desmond Ridder, but they're well put together as a team. I got them beating the Saints, so hey, look at that. First win of the season. I got them dropping both games to Detroit, kind of mentioned that. Going into their bye, I have them beating the Raiders. Coming out of their bye, this is the problem. Coming out of their bye, they go to Denver in Denver, but Denver's on a mini little bye here, coming off a mini bye, and I think that's just means extended week. So it's probably that they played Thursday the week before, so they get an extended week. So it's like you're coming off a bye and facing a Denver team that should be better this season, coming on a mini bye. I got them splitting with the Vikings. I think the Vikings are going to be very Vikings and Packers. They're going to be. Listen, I think the Packers, Vikings, and Detroit Lions are all going to be very close and vying for that crown. We'll get to who wins it later in the series. Got them beating the Rams, Steelers. Especially at this part of the year, Mike Tomlin's like, hey, I've never had a losing record, so I'm gonna need the Steelers I'm gonna need y'all to win more games. It's typically that time of the year. Chargers are a good squad. I mean, look at this slate here. I mean, Steelers. Listen, Steelers are a good squad, and then you gotta go face Chargers, face Detroit, not go to Kansas City, but you got to face KC, and you're like, oh, we faced them close last time with Jordan Love. It's like, okay, calm down. I mean, I got y'all beating the Giants. I do think the Giants are more overachievers, and I think that might show this season, especially if there might not be a Saquon. Got y'all beating Bucks, Panthers, and then again, I told y'all I had y'all split in there. So I think 8 and 9, even 9, you can make a case like you could switch like one of these and be like 9 and 8, which, fun fact, that actually puts them in shooting distance for the NFC North crown here. But I think that's fair. I think 7.5, I'm taking the over. Like, I feel confident enough that Jordan Love's going to do good enough. I like the system offensively. I think the play calling sometimes can be a bit meh, but I think it'll be fine. The defense, can they overcome Joe Barry? Can they stay healthy? That's yet to be seen, but we'll see. But yeah, that's kind of all I got for y'all today. That's it for the video. Go ahead, do the YouTube thing, and as always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.